everyone, this is Kami and today I am going to give some information about brain structures and their functions. The goal of this brain tour is to familiarize you with major brain structures and their functions. In this picture you see two questions. We have to answer it. What is brain? And the brain is the part of the body which lets us and other animals make sense of the world. It gets input from sense organs and changes behavior in response to these informations. Also, the brain is an organ that is the center of the nervous system in vertebrate and most invertebrate animals. Only a few invertebrates, such as sponges, jellyfish, starfish, don't have brain. What are the similarities and differences between brains? First, I want to speak about similarities. Each brain appears to have two hemispheres. There seems to be distinct structures in these brains, and each brain has a spinal cord descending from it. And differences, the overall size differences, where some brains are larger than others, the noticeable structure differences in particular places. In some brains, the cerebral cortex is particularly smooth, and in some others, there is lots of cortical folding. And human brain, most important one. The brain is the most complex part of the human body. This three-pound organ is the seat of intelligence, interpreter of senses, initiator of body movement, and controller of behavior. Lying in its bony shell and wash the protective fluid, the brain is source of qualities that define our humanity. The brain is crown jewel of the human body. Some amazing information I think about human brain. The human brain is the largest brain of all vertebrates relative to body size. It weighs nearly 1.5 kilograms. The brain makes up about 2% of a human's body weight. The cerebrum makes up 85% of the brain's weight. It contains about 86 billion nerve cells, the gray matter. It contains billions of nerve fibers, the white matters. These neurons are connected by trillions of connections or synapses. Yeah, most famous comparison, left brain and right brain. As you know, the human brain is divided into two hemispheres, the left and the right, connected by a bundle of nerve fibers called the corpus callosum. The hemispheres are strongly taut, not entirely symmetrical. The left brain controls all the muscles on the right hand, and the right brain controls all left side. One hemisphere may be slightly dominant, as white, left or right-handedness. The popular notions about left brain and right brain qualities and generalizations that are not well supported by evidence. Still, there are some important differences between these areas. The left brain contains regions involved in speech and language, and also associated with mathematical calculation and fact retrieval. The right brain plays a role in visual and auditory processing, spatial skills, and artistic abilities. Uh, the right brain is more creative things we can use it. And the central nervous system can be broken down as follows: spinal column, hindbrain, medulla, pons, cerebellum, midbrain, forebrain, cerebrum, cerebral cortex, four lobes, subcortical structures, ganglia and limbic system, corpus callosum, thalamus, and hypothalamus. Spinal cord. The spinal cord is a bundle of nerves that go to and from to the brain. It's enclosed in and protected by the bony vertebral column. The main function of the spinal cord is transmission of neural inputs between the periphery and the brain. The spinal cord is a bundle of nerves that go to and from the brain. Humans have 31 left-right pairs of spinal nerves. Hindbrain. hindbrain is also very important part of our brain. The hindbrain is located towards rear and lower portion of the person's brain. It's responsible for controlling a number of important body functions and processes including respiration and heart rate. The brainstem is an important part of the hindbrain and it controls functions that are critical to life, such as breathing and swallowing. The cerebellum is also located here and it plays a role in a physical ability. And medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata is the part of brainstem that is situated between the pons and the spinal cord. The medulla contains the cardiac, respiratory, vomiting, and vasomotor centers and therefore deals with the automatic functions of blood pressure, breathing, and heart rate. And pons. Pons is also located in the hindbrain. The pons is part of the hindbrain and anterior part of the brain. It acts as a bridge and has nerve fibers connecting the cerebellum to the medulla oblongata. In humans, it's above the medulla and below the midbrain. Mainly, it functions to carry white fibers, which conduct signals from the cerebrum down to cerebellum and medulla, and tracks to carry the sensory signals up into the thalamus. And cerebellum. Cerebellum is also located in the hindbrain. In all vertebrates, including human beings, the cerebellum is one of the main divisions of the brain. The cerebellum works mainly to control balance and coordinate movement. It combines signals from eyes, muscle spindles, and ears with motor commands from the forebrain and helps to coordinate control of the body. More advanced regions of the human cerebellum may be critical to language and mental dexterity. Bands of axons extended from the cerebellum into the pons. And midbrain. This is the second part of the brain. Midbrain is the smallest region of the brain that relay information between front brain to hindbrain. Also controls many important functions such as visual and auditory system as well as eye movement. Portions of the midbrain called as red nucleus and the substantia nigra are involved in the control of body movement. The darkly pigmented substantia nigra contains a large number of dopamine-producing neurons are located. The degeneration of neurons is substantia nigra is associated with Parkinson disease. And forebrain. This is the very important part of our brain. The forebrain is the largest part of the brain, most of which is cerebrum. Other important structures found in the forebrain include the thalamus, hypothalamus, and the limbic system. Cerebrum. The largest part of the human brain is the cerebrum, which is divided into two hemispheres, as we said. Underneath lies is the brainstem, and behind it sits the cerebellum. The outermost layer of the cerebrum is cerebral cortex, which consists of four lobes: the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, the temporal lobe, and the occipital lobe. Also, cerebrum is the most developed part of the brain. It's making up 80% of brain weight. And cerebral cortex. Cerebral cortex is the part of the brain that functions to make human beings unique. Distinctly human traits including higher thought, language, and human consciousness, as well as the ability to think, reason, and imagine all originate in the cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex is what we see when we look at the brain. It's the outermost portion that can be divided into four lobes of the brain, as we said. Each bump of surface of the brain is known as gyrus, while each groove is known as sulcus. And what are they four lobes? First lobe is frontal lobe is involved in the process such as reasoning, planning, speech, movement, emotions, and problem solving. So these are the types of things that are happening in the frontal lobe. Then we have a parietal lobe, which is involved in movement, orientation, recognition, and perception. The occipital lobe is involved in visual processing, and this is why sometimes if you get hit on the back of the head, you see stars and so on. That has to do with visual processing. Then we have the temporal lobe, which deals with auditory, perception, memory, and speech. And next part is basal ganglia. Basal ganglia is the group of large nuclei that partially surround the thalamus. These nuclei are important in control of movement, such as bicycling and typing. The red nucleus and substantia nigra of the midbrain have connections with basal ganglia. And our next part, limbic system. The limbic system is comprised of four main structures: the amygdala, the hippocampus, regions of limbal cortex, and the septaria. These structures form connections between the limbic system and the hypothalamus, thalamus, and cerebral cortex. The hippocampus is important in memory and learning, while the limbic system itself is central in the control of emotional responses. And corpus callosum. The brain is divided into right and left hemispheres, and the two halves are connected by the corpus callosum. This bundle of nerve tissue contains over 200 million axons. This part is the largest collection of white matter, and it allows different parts of the brain to communicate each other. Thalamus. Located above the brainstem, the thalamus processes and transmits movement and sensory information. It is essentially a relay station, taking in sensory information and then passing it on to the cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex also sends information to the thalamus, which then sends these informations to other systems. And hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is a grouping of nuclei that lie along the base of the brain near the pituitary gland. The hypothalamus connects with many other regions of the brain, and it's responsible for controlling hunger, thirst, emotions, body temperature regulation, and circadian rhythms. The hypothalamus also controls the pituitary gland by secreting hormones, which gives the hypothalamus a great deal of control over many body functions. And brainstem. The brainstem is the rear part of the brain. It has two sections, the hindbrain, which includes the pons, and the midbrain. Though the brainstem is small, it's extremely important the motor and sensory connections from the main part of the brain to the rest of body pass through the brainstem. Also from the brainstem come the main motor and sensory nerves to the face and neck. These nerves are called cranial nerves. The brainstem controls many bodily functions of which we are not normally aware, such as breathing, heartbeat, and sweating. The brainstem controls functions which are unconscious but necessary for life. And most important question, how can we improve our brain power? I'll tell you nearly 10 tips for improve your brain. First of all, do something new. What I mean, when you experience something new, you actually stimulate your brain. Don't get stuck in a rut doing the same old things. For example, you can take a new road to work or school, try a new recipe for dinner, or even a new form of exercise. Mix it up. Oops. And second one, exercise regularly. It's been proven that regular exercise helps to increase brain function and enhance neurogenesis. This means that every time you exercise, you are creating new brain cells. Get off the couch and get involving. Your brain will thank you for it. Train your memory. How often do you hear people say, I wish I had a better memory? One does about this. If you discipline yourself to memorize phone numbers and other important numbers like passport, credit card, driving license, you will start to see a marked improvement in your memory. Be curious. Instead of taking everything at face value, get into the habit of questioning everyday things or products, services that you come into contact with. By being curious and questioning everything, you force your brain to innovate and create new ideas. Curiosity may have killed that cat. More importantly, it created super important things like electricity and computers. Think positive. Stress and anxiety kills exciting brain neurons and also stop new neurons from being created. Research has shown that positive thinking is especially in the future tense speeds up the creation of cells and dramatically reduces stress and anxiety. Try and get a handle of negative thoughts and make an effort to replace them with positive ones. Eating healthy. Our diets have a huge impact on brain function. Our brains consume over 20% of all oxygen that we consume. So remember to feed your brain with good stuff, for example, fresh fruits and plenty of omega-3 oils found in oiled fish. And reading book. Reading relieves tension and stress, brain cell killers, because it's a form of escapes. Research has also shown that using your imagination is a great way to train your brain because you force your mind to picture what you are imagining. Reading is a great way to trigger your imagination. Get enough sleep. Sleep is like a mini detox for the brain. This is the when your body regenerates cells and removes all the toxins that have built up during the day. Get to bed between the hours of 9 p.m. and midnight to benefit from the most effective hours of sleep. Ditch the GPS. Gone are the days of map reading. SatNav may have made our lives easier. It has also made our brains lazier and less efficient at the same time. Go back to the old school and use the map to navigate every now and then. These exercises the part of your brain responsible for understanding spatial relationships. Ban the calculator. Remember back at school when we were taught to use our brains to do simple sums like timetables? It's incredible how we are now rely on devices like smartphones and laptops to calculate really simple equations. Resist the urge to work things out using an external device and use the device you were born with, your brain. And here is my references. Thanks, special thanks for these websites and books. And thanks for watching. I'm waiting your comments. Goodbye.